So we have lots of coffee upstairs, but before you go, I would like to just invite you to participate in the research for one of our working groups. If I could have the slide back with the QR code, please, that would be amazing. So that is brilliant, thank you. So this is one of the working groups within the penetration testing focus group who are looking at thinking about comparing vulnerability assessment and penetration testing engagements, an age-old topic. So you can do that in the break, have some coffee, but also during the break, I would like to have Nick Benson, Leanne, Sperry, and Jonathan Armstrong to discuss and talk about questions on professional titles. If they're here, could they please come to the stage?
All right, welcome everyone to our second panel discussion, but kind of our first official one, which is around professional titling. And I'm delighted to be joined on stage this morning by our head of accreditation, Jonathan Armstrong. Hello. Our CEO, Nick Benson, and our very special guest, Leanne Sperry from the UK Cyber Security Council. So obviously, as you heard earlier, we have obviously launched last week professional titling in the security testing specialism at CREST. So we're here to talk a little bit more about that and obviously answer any questions that you have. We have about kind of 15, 20 minutes or so to do that, so we'll try and keep brief and give you time to do that. But first and foremost, I just wanted to kind of, well, first of all, welcome to CRESTCon. But just to talk a bit more about why professional titling is important to the industry, first and foremost.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with that, and I spoke a little bit about this earlier. And sometimes it's difficult to see, particularly at an early stage of professionalization, where this fits into people's careers. And often we do compare to some of the other industries that are very much more established or sectors, accountancy, engineering, medicine, etc. And we look at the current situation and say, well, why will that help us? What does it mean for me? And I think sometimes it's a case of look at it over a career and look at it over a lifespan, and our expectation is that it will become very similar to those other professions over time. And in a couple of decades' time, there will be an expectation of the people that are at the beginning of their career and they're managing other teams that they will be looking for professional titles in the way those other sectors do. There will be an expectation, and it is a measure of professionalism. It is a measure of consistently applied standards, which you don't get if you only look at certifications, because they are all quite different, as we all know. And therefore, to bring rigor to a sector, to give confidence to those that are buying cyber services or employing cyber professionals, it just takes a lot of friction away to have a common understanding of standards and expectations. And not only that, the bit that's a little bit different from some of the other sectors is I suspect there's very few situations where people do engagements or jobs where they're only operating within a single country's border, whether that means data that's outside, dealing with subsidiaries that are overseas. And so it is really going to become problematic if individual countries start putting in rules and standards about the individual if those standards are not understood and recognized and portable across countries. And then if you add to that the personal ambitions that people may have to operate overseas, I was lucky enough to be posted in Australia for a couple of years earlier in my career, and that was underpinned by my ability to port the certification that I had at the time. And so we want that for the cyber industry going forwards, and therefore we want to get in early doors to support the setting of those standards and the harmonizing of those standards internationally. But it is very much early days. I think people will see it probably more for how important it is in many ways with hindsight in 5, 10, 15 years' time. So we're at the beginning of that journey now.
Yeah, and how about you? What, in terms of being at the council and obviously kind of spearheading this charge, like how do you feel it is the importance of industry?
Mirroring everything that Nick has just said as well. Professionalising the industry, it couldn't come at a better time, really, what with changes everywhere else. It's really going to, I feel, keep retention in the industry as well. So not only do people in the industry now and those coming through in their early careers have a career path in front of them, it's going to bring more into the industry as well. And it's really going to professionalise it. You know, people are going to be working to the same standard, you're going to have the same expectation of the individuals that you're employing, and it really does support the recruitment industry in that way. It brings, for me, the biggest thing is it really does embed trust in the individuals. So not only then do employers know who they're employing and the type of standards and their competence and their skills to do their job, they also know they're working at an ethical standard. And when selling that to a consumer and those who may not understand the industry, those who may not understand what they need exactly, they will be able to put trust in the professional title that's there, that they know that the individual will know what they're doing. They will have the skills and the competence to do what is needed to be done and be able to inform that client exactly what is needed.
Johnny, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd agree with everything that both Nick and Leanne have said. For me, it's kind of like pathways. It's all about pathways into different careers, different specialisms, and then marking those key milestones in your journey. So, you know, at those beginning stages, it's very difficult to get recognition so that you can then progress on that journey. And if you look on LinkedIn, you know, there's often conversations about, you know, how do I get an entry job? They want 5 years experience, 2 years experience. They want this qualification, that qualification. Having a consistent set of titles can really help people to go, okay, well, I know exactly what I need to do if I want to be involved in this specialism, and then marking those milestones as they develop. You know, you see this quite often in accountancy where people, you know, at the start of their journey, in order to progress to their next level, they need to first achieve like the initial title, right? And then as they progress through that career, they get additional titles. And then like Nick says, they can use that when they're going into different countries to deliver services and move around. So yeah, for me, that I think a really exciting part about it is defining what those pathways look like and then allowing people to be able to access them.
Absolutely. So in terms of, obviously, you talked about the kind of different levels. So obviously, we've got, as you can see from our website, we obviously have the kind of different levels that we're offering. What are the next steps in terms of developing professional titling and security testing, not just for CREST, but obviously for the council as well?
So currently we have 3 professional titles, and we are developing a 4th at the moment. So starting with the pinnacle that most people are interested in at the moment, and that is the chartered title. And we've developed chartered and principal. CREST are licensed to assess individuals and award chartered and principal now, which is fantastic. And we are in development with associate. So whilst it's available on the website and you can go and read about it, it is still in development. And that's really looking at the early career starters, those getting into the industry. We want to bring them along on the professional journey where we can. And now we're looking at a 4th title that it's more where people have a small amount of experience in the industry, so they're not quite a career starter, but they haven't quite reached principal yet. So we're trying to bridge that gap so we can really show a nice career path throughout someone's career. We also have specialisms. So what we've done is we have the overarching standard with those 4 professional titles, and we've split the industry into 15 sectors at the moment, and we call them specialisms. And we are focusing on providing guidance to those in each of those specialisms to be able to apply for professional registration, see how it's relevant to them, the type of evidence that they could put forward as well. So we're working with CREST at the moment with security testing, and I don't know if I'm allowed. Are we allowed to mention the other one we're working on?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. So we're also developing incident response with CREST as well. That's in pilot stage at the moment. So we're really trying to make sure that anything we do produce and becomes available in the market has been quality assured and quality tested, so the individuals can be proud to achieve the professional titles under those specialisms.
So you heard it here first, hot off the press, response is next.
Yes.
And Johnny, you've been quite involved in the piloting of a lot of this. Can you talk a bit more about what we're doing on that front?
So the pilot process was really implemented to try and look at different methods in which you can assess individuals. So I think very early on in the development of titling, it was sort of decided that perhaps the only option was to interview somebody, to have a discussion with them, to sit down for maybe an hour or 2 hours and really grill them about their experience. But we felt it was really important to offer an alternative route that allowed a candidate to really consider their experience. And if you've ever been in a competency-based interview, interview. It can be quite intimidating, being questioned and queried about your answers. Having the option to really sit down and look at what those competencies mean, how you can apply them to your lived experience in your career, and then write a response which really sells your capabilities and your commitment, we thought was really, really useful and beneficial to people, particularly individuals that might have additional needs through like neurodiversity or other issues. So we spent a lot of time trying to get that across the line, which is perhaps why we were slightly delayed in our announcement, but we're pleased that we've managed to prove the model, and now it's become an option that's available to people, and it will really give them that time to consider their response and put their best foot forward.
And I think it's that inclusive element to the process that was just, as you say, so important to us, that we took that time with the council to work. And yes, it meant we were a little bit, as I say, a bit later to market, but as Johnny says, delighted to done. And Nick, I know you've got some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I think the other thing to add is I've done many interviews in my career, and they certainly have their benefits and their upside. You do get an opportunity to really see the person for who they are in that short window. However, it does open up the process to bias, and depending on who you are, you have natural inclinations to think, is this person like me? Are they different from me? You have subconscious thoughts that go through the whole process. And we were really keen to try something that eliminated as much of that as possible. And so, the people that are looking at the application form, they don't know the name of the individual, they don't know the background of the individual, they don't know what company they're working for. They are genuinely judging what they're seeing and marking what they're seeing based on an objective guide. And we do have a process whereby if there are borderline cases, then we do have the option to have that interview route as well. But we're quite proud of what we've designed, particularly for our community, where we have listened and heard that those interview situations can really put them off, and we want to encourage as many people through this route as possible. So we felt that was an important differentiator to bring to the market, to be able to have that option of inclusivity.
I think as Johnny said, I think we've all been there. I think anyone who's been in an interview process, it can be incredibly daunting regardless of the circumstances. So looking at a bit further ahead, obviously you've kind of touched on it, 10, 15 years time. What would you like to see as a kind of a vision for professional titling as we mature kind of our pathway for the future?
I would like to think that it has significantly bedded down, and if we were to have this sort of event again, and we asked the question of, what is professionalising the cyber workforce, in reality that question wouldn't come, because everyone's kind of like, no, I know what it is. It will still be in its infancy 10 years from now. We should just recognise that and be comfortable with it, and it will need to change at a crazy pace. But I like to think that we're no longer kind of going, well, should we, shouldn't we? We just are. We're just in the early stages of it, and so it won't feel quite as new as it probably feels today. I would urge people not to try to imagine that the bar that we should be heading for it feels the same as all these other sectors that have had chartering for centuries. That is unrealistic, and we'll be setting ourselves up to fail if we put the bar at that stage. But I certainly feel like the nomenclature, the language of professional titles will be embedded. We'll have a whole load of people that have gone through it, and people that are now at the beginnings of their career that are then in sort of management positions looking to build teams will be thinking naturally of looking for these professional titles when they are recruiting, which obviously wouldn't yet be the case.
Leanne, put yourself from the council's perspective.
From the council's perspective, it's a very similar approach, to be fair. I suppose if I was to ask for a wish list for 10 years' time, it would be things like people understanding professional titles, and not just those in the profession and understanding what it means to them, the clients understanding it as well. Same as you understand now what a chartered accountant is. You may not know how they get there, but you understand what that means. So I'd love to have that understanding in 10 years' time, and I don't see why we can't achieve that specifically. But having it embedded in everything that we do, recruitment, certifications, qualifications, and across business and government as well, would be a fantastic goal to have.
Johnny, as someone who's so involved in this kind of this the development process. How about yourself? Where would you like to see it?
I think I'd like to pick up on what Nick says. I'd like to see that recognition globally, essentially. So we'd have a global community of professionally registered individuals, and be that through the work that we're doing with the UK Cybersecurity Council or with other bodies, and then having that consistent application of standards so that everyone's working to the same framework and to the same goals and same milestones. I think that would be a really big achievement and would help global trade, which is so prevalent in cyber.
If you asked me 9 months ago how optimistic I was that national authorities around the world might do what we would deem to be the right thing and talk to each other and get ahead of this professionalisation before each individual country sets their own standards, I would have been I'm always optimistic, but probably would have had low levels of optimism. I have seen through accountancy, they've spent 70 years trying to harmonise to international accounting standards because in particular the US and the UK started their own standards that then deviated, realised they needed to think multinationally and then spent decades trying to reverse it. I feel really passionately about trying to get ahead of that with cyber to learn those lessons. But I didn't feel optimistic because governments, their job is to take the national interest first and do what they need to do. Now, since that point, I have presented to a set of 7 governments in a working group, coordinated by the UK, to talk about this exact point, to try and work out, even if we were to start with principles, what could we set out to try to harmonise. And they are the countries that are, I guess, most evolved in their thinking about the topic, and there seems to be a genuine will to talk about this, but also to bring in the private sector and other and non-profit certification providers to have a more holistic conversation about it. So I am much more optimistic than I was 9 months ago that it is possible. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of changes of government going on and changes of priorities. It's certainly not a given, but optimistic.
But as an international and global organisation, obviously there's a lot of work that we do in terms of setting those standards of work, and we have an opportunity to learn from other chartered industries to kind of learn from that, as you say, and obviously tap into Johnny's vision of a global standard. So we're slightly coming to the end now. Any final thoughts from the panel from yourselves in terms of professional titling and where we'll be going and taking it forward? And obviously we'll be around all day, so if you do want to we appreciate not everyone wants to obviously raise questions in a setting. You can speak to the panel today, obviously one-on-one throughout today's event. But any final thoughts from yourselves? Yeah,
I'd just like to say, the people that I've seen go through either a pilot or the process once it was launched, I see them make use of their titles in their profiles and in their email signatures, and I do feel like it is something that people can be proud of. So I'd encourage anyone that's sort of sitting on the fence whether it's something they should do or whether they shouldn't do it, to give it a go. It's a new thing. New things are always interesting, and it's better to be one of the first movers and to take advantage of the opportunities that arise. And hopefully the process that CREST has created will make that process easy for you to go through, and obviously remove some financial barriers through discounts for CREST members and so on.
Of course.
Yeah, I think similar to what Johnny said, I would encourage people to give it a go and be able to say in the future that you were one of the first, that before it was quite clear what it was all going to be and what it was all going to mean, you took a leap of faith and you supported. And I would encourage everyone to support the work of the UK Cybersecurity Council. It is not easy, as Leanne will attest. They are trying to do something. They are doing something that no other national authority around the world has yet done. And that's always going to be challenging, and there's going to be twists and turns. I just encourage support. It will all become clear in the years and decades ahead, but at the moment it's a challenge, so we all should get behind it.
Leanne?
Thank you. I was going to go down the support route as well, but I'll try not to. So we can't really professionalise the industry without the support of organisations like yourselves as CREST and others in the industry, as well as the individuals. As they said, come forward. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to come and ask any questions. We want to be able to professionalise the industry so that your skills and knowledge and your competence can be seen. And we can't do that without you.
That's great. So professional titling in the security testing specialism, if you go to the CREST website, you can find lots more information there about how to apply for both chartered and principal. But for now, a big round of applause and thank you to our panel for their time today.